Today I'm going to give the 2017 wheat update of some chemicals that I've been working with over the past couple of years. First, I'd like to show you what I'm going to be discussing. I've talked to you about Fierce, which we thought was going to have a Section 3 label this year, but due to some label issues in Georgia and due to the issues are actually about the 3-ounce rate. Because of the soil type, we are not going to have it for early post applications, which is what we've tested it for. So this year we're testing it for pre-plant applications, and hopefully we'll have that label next year. We're going to be looking at Anthem Flex, of course, Valor, Zidua, Axial, Axiom, QLex, PowerFlex, and Harmony Extra. And what we did is we looked at these new chemicals versus the old chemistries that have been around for quite some time. I put in the 2016 trials because they're a little bit different than some of the 2017 trials. In this trial, we looked at Zidua, Valor, Fierce, Zidua plus Metribuzin, and then some delayed pre options. Now, last year I discussed delayed pre options. However, after looking at the early post options, I think that that's the best way to do that. You can still put in the delayed pre's. However, I'm recommending the early post options instead of these products. This is the Tennessee Valley data, and this is for Italian ryegrass control. And I'd like for you to concentrate mostly on the 154-day data. That's the light blue bar. And at 154 days, of course, Fierce at 3 ounces, but also the Zidua plus Syncor provided over 90% control. Those two were the ones that provided the best control over the long season. Now, if you look at the yields, the Fierce corresponded with that. The Zidua Syncor also had very good yields on the early post applications as well. Looking at the PBU data from last year, we also saw pretty much the same thing as far as the Zidua Syncor and the Fierce. We also saw that with, the Valor at either rate, as well as the Fierce at the lower rate. So we saw some differences with that. Now, this is at 84 days. So it would probably change if we were looking at the season-long control of 154 days. Just to give you some pictures of the Tennessee Valley, this on the left, this is untreated. So this on the left is at 144 days after planting. This on the right is 176 days after planting. As you can see, it is all ryegrass. We did seed this area to Italian ryegrass, and so it had a good stand of ryegrass in these plots. This is Valor at 3 ounces. At 154 days, it had a good bit of ryegrass in it. You can see the wheat right here, but all of this is ryegrass. Same you can see on the previous one. This is Fierce at 1.5 ounces, and we spray the middle of the plot. We spray 6.33 feet out of 10 feet, and so you can see the box right here of where the wheat is, and then you see the ryegrass all around it. This is again Fierce. I'm not going to spend any time on that though. Now, this is the Zidua plus Metribuzin, and again you see this very good control in the 122 days, and you see the ryegrass around it, as well as 154 days. You see very little ryegrass in the plot, yet it is just surrounding the wheat. As far as the this year's field crops wheat treatments, we looked at all early post treatments of Zidua, again Valor, Fierce, Zidua metribuzin, and then Anthem Flex and metribuzin. And looking at this data, we saw, again, I hate to leave the fierce out because it is so good, but the early post is not going to be an option. But at 84 days, our Anthem Flex plus Cencor was the very best treatment. This is followed by the Zidua Cencor and the Valor at 3 ounces. However, though there was not a statistical difference, you see that the Zidua Cencor was at 85% control of Italian ryegrass, and the Valor was at about 75%. The wheat yields, you can see a difference in that. Anthem Flex and Cencor, the yields were very high. They were, I mean, they weren't high for wheat yields, but respectively compared to the other plots. They and the 3 ounces of Fierce were the best yielding of any of the plots. At Sand Mountain this year, we looked at the same plots, the same treatments. And just to give you an idea of the difference between what we saw at Sand Mountain and what we saw at down in central Alabama. This is at 84 days, and the Anthem Flex Cencor again did the best, and it was compared to, but it did as well as Zidua Cencor, and of course the Fierce treatments, as well as Valor at 3 ounces. And this is at 84 days. The wheat yields, with Fierce being the highest, and then the Anthem Flex and Cencor, and then the 2 Valor treatments and the Zidua treatment were all equal. Give you some field shots of this. These are early at 67 days, and this is at field crops, and this is 171 days. Of course, this is the untreated. This is Valor, and you do see the ryegrass in here. You can kind of see it right there as well. This is Fierce early post, and that was at 1.5. This is at 3 ounces. This is the Zidua Cencor. This is the Zidua Cencor again. This is the Anthem Flex with Cencor. And you can kind of see a good idea of how the ryegrass was. It was completely in all the areas of the field. So when we sprayed it, you could really tell a difference between the plots. Just to give you a little idea of the differences between these products. Of course, this is the untreated, but with the Valor, it's going to kill your emerged weeds, but it's not going to stop emergence. With your Zidua, it does stop the weeds from emerging, but it doesn't have any activity on the emerged weeds. However, with the Fierce, it's a combination of the Valor and the Zidua, so it has activity on both the emerged weeds and the weeds that are emerging. So it does give that benefit. So if we do get that label, it's going to be of great benefit for us. This is looking at Anthem Flex and some different combinations of Anthem Flex, and the comparison treatment was Axiom followed by Axial. The light blue bar is going to be the one that is for 184 days. And if you notice, these that have the low ratings with the white and the light blue bar are all pre's. It's either Anthem Flex pre or Anthem Flex pre followed by a delayed pre or just a delayed pre. These all have either an early post or a late post application. And so that's something to be aware of, that you are going to need to apply either an early post or a late post or a combination of both in order to get sufficient weed control when using this product. It was compared to Axiom and Axial, which provided the best control at nearly 95%, but it was equal to the Anthem Flex followed by Anthem Flex pre and delayed pre followed by metribuzin. It was also equal to the Anthem Flex just followed by Metribuzin. And then it was also equal to Anthem Flex Pre, followed by Anthem Flex Early Post. The wheat yields at the Tennessee Valley basically showed the same thing as the weed control. If you had an early post or a late post application, then your yields were higher than anything that just had a pre in it. Some pictures of this. This is the untreated at 192 days after planting. This is Anthem Flex at 3 ounces pre, so you see all the ryegrass that's in there. This is Anthem Flex Pre, followed by Anthem Flex Early Post. You see the ryegrass on the outside, but it's not in the plot. So Anthem Flex Delayed Pre, followed by Axial Late Post. And so it doesn't have to be a early post or a late post of Anthem Flex. You just need some post-emergence application in order to control the ryegrass. And you can see the ryegrass on this plot right here, so that shows you how thick it is. This is Anthem Flex plus Metribuzin, early post. Anthem Flex Pre, followed by Anthem Flex Delayed Pre, is Anthem Flex Pre, followed by a combination of Anthem Flex plus Metribuzin early post. And again, you can see all of this ryegrass in the background, and you can see it on the sides to see how thick it was. This is Axiom early post, followed by Axial late post. And again, this was the standard that we were comparing it to, but it did a very good job on the ryegrass control. The last product I'm going to show you is QLEX, which was compared to Harmony and to PowerFlex, and then a combination of PowerFlex plus QLEX. And these were all post-emergence treatments. This is data for cut leaf evening primrose, which is a very difficult weed to control. We generally have a good bit of trouble with it. In some years, if we have a cool spring or we have a rainy spring like we did this year, you can have cut leaf evening primrose even into July. I actually saw that this year in central Alabama, in North Alabama, and some in South Alabama. And so this is a weed that is difficult to control, and the best treatment overall for this was the QLEX with nitrogen as a carrier with the surfactant of Activator 90, which was what they had called for. Now this is at 42 days. This is followed by QLEX alone with the surfactant or Harmony Extra with the surfactant. The PowerFlex or the QLEX plus the PowerFlex did not perform as well. Swine crust control. All of these, with the exception of the PowerFlex, perform very well on swine crust control. One thing I want you to notice, though, is that, and you'll find this with the QLEX, 14 days, you have very little control. Now, this is with all of these products, but one thing I noticed with the QLEX, it takes a long time to see activity on it. At about 3 weeks, I really started seeing a good kill on it. So it's a very slow-acting product, yet it does do very well once it shows up. So you could go out there at 2 weeks and think, well, this didn't work, but it actually is working and it does work well. It just takes a long time for the activity to show up. Ooh, excuse me. Mouse-ear chickweed is another one that is very tough to control, and we have a lot of it in Alabama. Common chickweed is usually very easy to control, but mouse-ear, it grows larger than common chickweed and it has hairs all over it. And again, the best treatment for it was the QLEX with the nitrogen as the carrier. But you do see how activity went from 14 days, it was around 15% control. 21 days, it shot up to 85% control. However, at 42 days, it got to 90%. So it really does take a long time for this product to work. So the Culex with the nitrogen carrier, again, was the best product. And that was followed by the Culex alone with a surfactant, with carriered in water, as well as the Harmony Extra with the surfactant. And then this year we looked at Culex with, again, with just water as a carrier or a carrier of nitrogen. And we also included 2,4-D ester in combination with Culex. And then, of course, we looked at Harmony Extra and PowerFlex again. And the only weed that we actually had quite a bit of, we were able to have it in all of our plots was yellow wood sorrel. And basically we got good control out of all of these products. At 56 days, you know, PowerFlex plus Culex, PowerFlex, each of these have A's by them, which shows that there's no difference in control with all of them. And so those basically across the board showed very good control. You'll see some of the numbers are lower. For example, you got around 65% control with PowerFlex, and Culex plus 2,4-D ester was showing 85%. So numerically you had some differences, but statistically you didn't see any differences in those. The bottom line is, and I did put the group numbers on here because we do have ryegrass resistance, and we have resistance in some of these like horseweed and some of these other weeds. And so we do want to try and use different groups, different sites of action or modes of action. We want to make sure that we are not using the same thing over and over again. And I know that many people use Harmony Extra every year. And so because it is a very good product, but we do want to make sure that we're not going to get resistance to more weeds in the winter. So Zidua plus metribuzin, Anthem Flex plus metribuzin, and Axiom followed by Axial, all applied early post, provided the best overall Italian ryegrass control compared to the industry standard of Harmony Extra. And that was pretty consistent across the board in all of our trials. I didn't show you all of our trials and all of our data for 16 and 17 because that would take, you know, an hour or 2 hours to go through. But consistently, you know, it did show this. Culex is a combination of a group 4 and a group 2, and it provides good to excellent broadleaf control on weeds such as henbit, chickweed, both common and mouse ear, the mustards, horseweed, Carolina geranium, and in our case, we've seen good control of cutleaf evening primrose. So it will give you another option for broadleaf weed control. And we did see that when you're using it in the carrier of nitrogen, you did see an increase in control. So that concludes this webinar, and I appreciate you joining us.